Forgot to do the gavel. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton,
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Gregory, Henderson,
Here.
Nirenberg, Schroer, Weber. Quorum's present.
Having a quorum, we are going to move into hearing of House bills. We're going to go in order with House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1757. Representative Shields, begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. I am Representative Brenda Shields. I represent District 11 in St. Joseph, Missouri. And today I'm here to present House Bill 1757, a bill that defines how students should be screened to identify gifted students in public schools. Back in 2022, the legislature passed Senate Bill 681, requiring all schools to have a gifted program if 3% of their student bodies identified as gifted. But when this legislation passed, we failed to include how defensible screenings should be completed using research-based practices to make sure that we find and serve all Missouri's gifted students, regardless of their zip code or their family resources. If screenings do not happen, gifted and talented students are not identified, and if students are not identified, schools will never reach their 3% threshold to have to offer a gifted program. House Bill 1757 requires all school districts to screen all students for gifted before the beginning of third grade. It provides schools, districts options on how to screen, and that there should be 3 staff members that review to determine if the child should be referred to a formal gifted assessment. Currently, Missouri has 518 school districts, and only 227 of those school districts have a gifted program. That's less than 45%. If you look at a service map, there are deserts all across Missouri where gifted students are not being served, and only 4% of Missouri students are enrolled in a gifted program. Nationally, 6% of students are classified as gifted. This means that we are missing over 20,000 students in the state of Missouri that we have not identified. You ask me why it's important that we find and identify these students. You might think that these students are smart, that they have rapid comprehension, that they have curiosity beyond other students, and that they should do well in school. But I want to take this a step further. These children have burdens. These children are young and different than their peers. They are the students that want to dive deeper into a topic far beyond what other students want or the class has time to do. They ask lots of questions because their curiosity is never fulfilled. They can't sit still because their body is never calm. And at a young age, they have surprising emotional depth and sensitivity. And for these reasons, many of these students have difficulty making friends. Many in this legislative body are gifted. Were you that child in the classroom? Or maybe you're like me, not gifted, but as I look back, I remember who those children were in my classroom that were gifted. Because of this, many of these students figure out that to get along, they dumb themselves down, or they just don't participate at all. And as they get older, the gifted students seek stimulation through risky behavior. Research shows that there's a disproportionate share of gifted individuals in our prison. If a gifted students aren't identified, it leads to untapped potential. And I believe as a state, we'd rather have this potential tapped early, allowing these students to thrive, than become a burden on our state by participating in risky behavior that leads to prison. So in closing, I can't say it any better than a teacher that and a close family friend that sent this to me. I think in schools like mine, the Gifted and Talented program is very beneficial for those that qualify. The average student in my district is very low academically, which leaves a handful of gifted students sitting around bored because the teacher is having to give special attention to the majority of students who need the most help. Having the escape of a pull-out program is the only thing that keeps my gifted children engaged in school and out of trouble. And most importantly, I know the gifted program develops these students' critical and creative thinking skills, which will benefit them for the rest of their lives. Mr. Chairman and Senators, I'm happy to answer any questions. I do know that Senator Hudson had a question on what it passed in the House. It passed 142 to 6 in the House.
Thank you for the bill. Thank you for bringing it forward. It's unfortunate because we think we pass these things. It should be standard operating procedure, and then we find out that there's a search to find the loophole in which we don't have to operate or do what was instructed by the legislature. So I hate that we have to bring these sorts of revisionist bills, but be that as may, here we are. So thank you for bringing it forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Senator.
See none, thank you.
Thank you very
Anyone
much.
to testify in support of the bill, please come forward. If you are testifying, please remember to fill out a witness form for the bill you're testifying on. Begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Senators. I'm Dr. Beth Winton, and I've spent my entire professional career in gifted education in Missouri. I used to be the supervisor of gifted education at DESE back in the day, was the gifted program coordinator for the Columbia Public Schools. I teach 2 of the 5 classes required for gifted certification at Mizzou, and I am here today as the chairperson of the Advisory Council on the Education of Gifted and Talented Children, a council created by the General Assembly in 2013. I want to start by thanking those of you who are here in 2022 when we advocated for the passage of the language that requires all districts to have a state-approved gifted program. The goal of that legislation was to ensure that all Missouri gifted students attend a school that could meet their needs regardless of their zip code. The goal of that bill still waits to be realized. Gifted students were first identified by the General Assembly in 1973, and 7 districts began a gifted education program. The prevalence of gifted programming grew from that time to its height in 2021, where we had 333 districts offering gifted programs with just under $24 million in dedicated state support. That represented only 60% of all Missouri public schools. After a change in the funding structure in 2005, the number of gifted education programs began to plummet to a low point of 196 districts. That's a lot of gifted kids going unserved in Missouri schools, and these reductions were disproportionately happening in small and rural districts. All children deserve high-quality curriculum instruction targeted to their academic needs, and every classroom has a gifted child in it. The system's designed around what is typical for children of a certain age. Any child that is not typical, for whatever reason, does not fit into the standard grade level system and needs services by trained teachers and targeted curriculum. This is the same philosophy that's applied to students in special education and to English learners. Gifted students may be intellectually ahead of their age peers, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily ahead socially or emotionally. Gifted students can be several grade levels ahead in an area of strength, but are not usually gifted in all areas. They can be behind what is typical in certain areas, and they can be twice exceptional, qualifying for both gifted and special education services. This asynchronous development results in struggles that are unique to gifted students. They cannot thrive on their own. They are not always a pleasure to have in class. The standard grade level curriculum is not designed to meet their academic or emotional needs, and regular classroom teachers have enough demands on their time. Not all gifted kids are high achievers. I wrote my dissertation on underachieving gifted students who account for approximately 30% of the gifted population. They feel weird and out of place. They get demotivated in regular classes, waiting around to learn something new in a system that does not recognize their strengths. They drop out of high school at alarming numbers, and they need their public schools to acknowledge these unique needs. I believe the process that requires all school districts to have a defensible screening protocol consistent with best practice is the best fit for our state. It establishes parameters for defensibility while still allowing local district personnel to make the final decisions, as they are the ones closest to the kids in the best position to make that determination. Establishing a defensible screening process aligned with best practice demonstrates the state's intent is to provide appropriate levels of service to all Missouri's kids. Some gifted students are very easy to identify, and some gifted students do not always show us what they know and can do in a school setting. Giftedness is present in all populations of students. What is not equally distributed is the opportunity or resources to nurture and develop those abilities, and that's where the public schools must be in place to meet that goal. Defensible screening process should cast a broad net and consider multiple variables of what students know and can do. It's not simply to establish a series of hurdles that must be successfully cleared in order, where a single misstep can end the process. The language we propose specifies a comprehensive approach to screening with multiple avenues, and it prevents the use of a single criterion from further consideration. The Gifted Education Program guidelines published by DESE and best practice states that districts should aim to select 10 to 20% of their population for further testing. The Advisory Council has published documents to help guide districts in making these important decisions, And I've currently drafted guidance specific to the screening process to supplement the language in this bill. It is not acceptable that districts pick and choose the students that they will serve. Right now, gifted students in Missouri are just lucky if they attend a school district that meets their unique needs. I thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any question? Senator, proceed.
You may or may not know this, but you may have an idea at least. What % of gifted kids actually drop out before they graduate, somewhat because of not being challenged? Do you know what that is?
The estimates are higher than you might realize.
That's what I figured.
Between 20 and 30% of identified gifted kids is the estimate. Of course, sometimes our gifted kids aren't identified, so once they drop out, they're not included in those numbers. So I personally think it's about higher than that. I know when I was the gifted program coordinator in Columbia Public Schools, we would track our kids, and we'd lose 8 to 10 identified gifted kids every year that didn't make it out of high school. And I know there are gifted kids that were not identified because testing's not perfect. So it is a lot of lost potential for our state.
And some of them don't want to be identified, really.
And some students make it really hard to identify, and some students make it really hard to serve them. And some students choose not to participate in the services, even if they are identified for a myriad of reasons, all of which are legitimate, but it still makes it really hard for us to help them navigate a world in which they really just don't fit. And they continue not to fit. Gifted kids become gifted adults, and sometimes society's not super friendly to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We're gonna pause real quick, and I make a motion that we move into executive session. I have a second. We are in executive session. I make a motion that we bring up House Bill 2710. Okay, and there has been a substitute that has been distributed. Yes, I move for its adoption, that we adopt the Senate Committee substitute for House Committee substitute for House Bill 2710. Second. I have a second. Discussion on this. The substitute basically just brings the A through F language that we passed out of the Senate, just brings the House bill in line with what we actually passed through this committee. It also adds my transparency bill that does include the charter language in that into this bill. So that's basically what the substitute does. Any discussion?
Just real briefly, this is a bill I would like to continue to work on. I know we had some conversation when we heard this bill in here. Essentially, you know, if we're going to move to this framework of grading schools A through F, I continue to struggle with tying those grades directly to MAP and EOC scores, and we've had those conversations because of our consternation with those tests. But I do think there's some real work we can do here, and so this is something that I'd like us to continue to work on. I think it's a real opportunity for us, quite frankly, to see if we can move in a different direction, but at the same time understanding that this would essentially create the fourth accreditation tool, if you will. And so I do think that we have some opportunities here to perhaps streamline things a little bit more. So if we're going to go to the A through F model, I'd like to continue to work with all senators involved in this conversation, and I think we can get this bill to a good place.
I would agree with that. I think that this the MAP testing, if there's a way we can streamline it, make it to where you're able to achieve metrics throughout the entire school year versus, like you said, being an autopsy. I think that's a good way to go. Yeah.
Actually, I support the bill. I think it's a good overall, but the MAP test for me, and I think everybody was in here the other day probably knows that, but the MAP test to me, and then we're going to give them the results October 31st, where they're a third of the way through the next school year at that point, and I don't think we're accomplishing what we want to. We may pass the bill, but it doesn't accomplish trying to raise education in there, like if you gave them a test where they could have the results back at the beginning of the year. So I will be a no. I would like to get to a yes on this vote, Bill, if we can do some things to make it actually work better, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. And I'll do everything I can to try to make this a much better bill. But with that, any further discussion? All right. This is a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the substitute signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We've adopted the substitute. Now I move that Senate Committee Substitute for House Bill 2710 do pass. To have a second discussion. See none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton.
Aye.
Hudson. Gregory. Henderson. Nernberg. Schroer. Weber.
All right, by your vote of 3 aye and 2 no, the motion and bill passes. I make a motion that we bring up Senate Bill 1558. Second, I move that Senate Bill 1558 do pass. Have a second discussion on that. This is a bill that we heard last week about the private bathrooms situation. I think we had ample discussion on that. Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton.
Aye.
Hudson. Gregory. Henderson. Nernberg. Schroer. Weber.
By your vote of 4-1, the motion passes. All right, I make a motion that we move out of executive session. Have a second, we are now back on the hearing of bills. Next, in favor of the House bill, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Christine Desming. I'm here on behalf of the Gifted Association of Missouri saying that basically are for this bill. I am a teacher, educator, parent, and a gifted education advocate, and I am fully in support of this bill because I've worked in districts where they have not had gifted education and districts that have, and a lot of students have fallen through the cracks of those who do not get tested and do not get identified. And we do a disservice for those students. And as a gifted education advocate and as a teacher for over a decade, I've seen students in my classroom who are absolutely gifted and those who do not necessarily get identified, but they miss those accommodations. And we need to do them justice by making sure that they are accommodated for, that they are identified, because we have a lot of students here in the state of Missouri that absolutely do need these accommodations for. And gifted education doesn't look just like a specific type of student. It's a wide range of ideas, backgrounds, students that have a lot to offer our society and in our education system. And I fully believe as a teacher that we do need to hold our schools accountable in reaching these students. And so I'm here in support of the House bill that this should be passed because Missouri, we can absolutely do better for our education students in gifted ed. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Please remember to you can leave your witness form up here if you did fill one out. Next in favor, please come forward. Again, remember to fill out a witness form.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We do support the bill. Just want to add that our association firmly believes that there should be well-documented guidelines and standards for identifying and teaching all gifted students. We strongly support this bill. We think it's a good step forward. Happy to answer questions.
That was really quick, Otto. Thank you. Any questions? See none. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chairman.
Appreciate it. Anyone else to testify in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate. Hopefully staff received my online testimony on the portal. Is that cool? I'm in support of HCS HB1757. I think it's a smart thing to do to test gifted students by the 3rd grade. I think that it's a good cursor, a good way of measuring the students' giftedness and their talents. And I think that if students rise above and beyond regular standard classrooms, that they need to be given more challenges and a better role in their education system. I think this is a great bill, testing at gifted students, and I fully support HCS HB1757. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else testify in support? Okay. Testify in opposition. Please come forward.
Lisa Panette with Armorvine. Our kids have turned into nothing more than sellable data. And the further proof of that is this bill, page 2, line 41, that says, a child's failure to meet criteria on a single screening or assessment tool shall not prevent further, wait for it, data collection. Will not prevent further data collection of our kids, because that's what we're all about, is getting our kids' data, collecting it, and selling it, or consideration for identification of such child. So for these reasons, because we don't wish to have our kids' data continue to be sold, we're against this.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Okay. Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Okay. Seeing none. Do you have any closing remarks? Okay. Thank you. That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 1757. We're going to move to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2404 and 2172. Representative, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for allowing us to bring up this bill. I am George Hruza, District 89 in St. Louis County. Thank you.
Representative Terry.
Thank you. This bill eliminates outdated deed restrictions that do not allow unused public school buildings to be sold or leased to public charter schools. Unused school buildings that a school board decides to sell or lease will give public entities the right of first refusal. One item that we are making a small change in the Senate committee substitute, which will eliminate the 2-year timeline for the public school building to be unused school building to be sold or leased. So the school districts will have really unlimited time, as much time as they feel they need to sell the building. This bill is permissive, it's not restrictive. It opens up more opportunities for repurposing unused and surplus school buildings, and the decision as to what to do with an unused school building remains with the local school board. Currently, almost 20 states have passed similar legislation, and it's time for Missouri to join them and support our students' education. Thank you.
If I may add, Mr. Chair and committee, we have visited many of schools in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, and especially charter schools, and that's what brought to our attention that the charter schools were building buildings inside of trailers when there were plethora of empty buildings in the city of St. Louis. I don't know if you had seen recently, there were so many buildings, nice historic buildings that weren't being used. And now they're to the point, and because of these restrictions, they would not sell. And now they're to the point where they're going to have to be torn down when they could have been sold for millions of dollars. And now the school districts has to borrow money to demolish something that could have helped within the school system. And so, you know, we just thought that it would be best if you'd use a building such as that would do educational purposes for children to learn. It would be much better instead of them going out trying to find a building or trailers when there are already available buildings. And I just want to think about the restrictions of deed restrictions. It could fall in any obstacle. That is the reason why a lot of us are living in food deserts now, because of deed restrictions on stores. So we don't want to get into a place where we start having boarded up schools and boarded up buildings in our community when they can be used for something productive. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony. To me, this is a complete, total no-brainer, common sense measure. Why we would allow taxpayer dollars to set and fall into complete disarray and to where it needs to be torn down versus being utilized for something that is needed, wanted, and desired by the community. It makes zero sense whatsoever to me. So thank you for bringing this forward. Any questions or comments? See none. Thank you both very much. Anyone to testify in support, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form. We do have them up there if you don't have a witness form. You can do it after the committee too, but you can go ahead and
Good morning. My name is Eliman Beng. I'm the superintendent of Academy Lafayette Public Charter School in Kansas City. Academy Lafayette is the first approved public charter school in Missouri. It offers the French immersion pre-K-12 program. It is also the largest French immersion program in the United States. We also offer an international baccalaureate program in middle school and high school diploma, and we also offer career and technical education with the international baccalaureate program, career-related program. So our students also have global studies. They spend 10 days in France, in middle school, and in high school, in Peru, 10 days in Peru, Senegal, West Africa, and China. So that's the kind of excellent education we're offering in Kansas City. Our school is growing. We're now 1,450 students, and we'll be going to 1,700 in a few years. Unfortunately, we don't have the facility. We have a renovated office building. We don't have an auditorium or gymnasium or soccer field. We're a soccer school. And we also have excellent academic performance. We outperform the surrounding suburban school district. In 2024, we had the third highest API in the state. So we're growing. We don't have a building. We approached the Brand Group, who own now a former public school, Westport Middle School. So unfortunately, there is a property use restriction. It cannot be used as for a K-12 school. So it was 2 years ago. We have been trying to work with Brand Group. We also approached KCPS, who was the former owner, to try to lift that property use restriction. We approached them in June 2024. So we hope that, and we have a good relationship with KCPS. We worked together to pass the bond in 2025. But so far, we're still working. It's 2 years, and we really need to move forward because we have to build either in our current property or buy the other one, which is fiscally makes sense because it allows us to have a gymnasium, an auditorium, and a proper soccer field. So that's why I'm here to testify in support for this bill. I think that our kids have a right to be educated in a proper learning environment. Thank you very much.
Now, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning, gentlemen. I think I've been here every week this month. But today, I am Maury Scott. I am a Missouri Charter Schools Advocate Fellow, and I am here in support of House Bill 2172. I was born and raised within the once beautiful surroundings of North St. Louis City, and it was truly a blessing. I was blessed to walk, laugh, play on the same streets, in the same parks, play hide and seek in the same trees that my parents also climbed the trees and played in. We had corner store, barbershop, hair salon, but most importantly, there were schools within walking distance of our homes. The schools were Simmons, Turner Middle, and Sumner High School. My parents and most of my elders attended those schools. Whereas those hallowed halls once held eager, bright-eyed children who were greeted daily by well-prepared and welcoming educators, most are now closed. They are crumbling and decaying structures. HB2172 is being proposed to change not only the narrative but the landscape of properties such as these. The families, especially the elders in these communities, now worry incessantly for their safety. They pray unceasingly over their coming and going, and they watch daily over the neighborhood children while at play. The bill would allow those verified, qualified, and with financial means to obtain these said buildings. Other schools, such as Scullins and Mark Twain, would no longer stand as calling cards for vandals and those looking for a place to hide their bad behavior from the elders' prying eyes. They could reopen, if not as places of learning, but at least as residences and safe spaces for community meetings and gatherings and family functions. Our request is that you allow your collective voices to become the strength needed for collaborative change, making it feasible to pass HB 2172, bringing about a positive outcome for schools and families, restoring the neighborhood and areas that some in this very building were elected to serve. So I thank you so much for your time and opportunity for this.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate your what you've experienced in your community. So it definitely is very beneficial. Any questions? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form that we have some up there if you don't have any.
Hello. My name is Paul Bartell. I am a Academy Lafayette parent. This is my oldest son, Micah, and I have three other children. Silas, who is a junior at Academy Lafayette International High School, Salem, who's an 8th grader, and Nora, who's a 6th grader at Academy Lafayette Charter School. Our family moved to Kansas City in 2009 and were involved with public schools from the very beginning. We quickly got involved with Hartman Elementary, which is in the KCPS, volunteering there. We helped paint exterior doors. We built out a new teacher's lounge for the teachers. We provided lunches for the teachers, volunteered with kids, reading to kids, stuff like that. One year we raised 15,000 books to donate to elementary school kids and delivered them to every elementary school in the district. We did that because we believe in public education. Ultimately, got involved with Friends of Hale Cook, which was a nonprofit organization that got started to reopen Hale Cook Elementary, which is a Kansas City, Missouri public school, is a neighborhood elementary school, which now is one of the highest performing elementary schools in the district. Ultimately, our kids ended up at a charter school. To us, KCPS and charter schools are both part of a puzzle to try to provide the best public education possible for the kids in our city. They're not supposed to be competition with one another. They're intended to work together for the greater good of our city. That's how we've always looked at it, and that's why we continue to support KCPS and Academy Lafayette in every way we can. I serve as a realtor in Kansas City. I've been a realtor for 10 years, and so I watched with a lot of interest after 2010 when Kansas City closed 26 schools in one vote, and therefore had 26 buildings that were empty starting in 2010. And I really appreciated the process with which they went to try to sell those buildings or repurpose them. And the goal was to try to repurpose them in a way that our taxpayer dollars would intend, something for the community. And so, we thought it would make sense that it would go for, a community center or maybe a affordable senior living center or something like that. And some of the buildings did, but now 15 years later, many of those buildings still sit empty, and none of them have been haven't been repurposed. Meanwhile, our charter school, Academy Lafayette, is seeking to purchase a building that has been repurposed, so is no longer owned by Kansas City Public Schools. And we are trying to do what their taxpayers in the 1920s intended to do with their taxes, which was to turn this building or make this building a public school. And we are finding that that's difficult. And so it is our desire to see that become what it was originally intended, which is a school. And our hope is that this bill will pass so that we can move forward in that measure.
So my name is Micah Bartell. I went to Academy Lafayette Charter School. I'm now a freshman at University of Missouri. After I graduated from middle school, many students didn't even consider the Academy Lafayette High School an option because it was in the second year of its existence at the time, and it was mostly because of the facilities that were offered and the lack of opportunities that the lack of those facilities gave to those students. And that's the reason that most of my classmates from middle school didn't choose to continue their journey at Academy Lafayette, is because there was no gym, there's no basketball team, there's no auditorium, there's no theater group. And then in the end, those who did stay at Academy Lafayette, like myself, ended up being able to start some of those things. Despite the challenges, we started a theater group, and we used the elementary school auditorium 15 minutes away every single day after school. If that was being used, we would use the theater director's backyard. We made it work, but if we'd had a building that was meant to be a school with an auditorium, we wouldn't have had to do that. My brother currently plays basketball for the middle school and will for the high school next year, and they used a YMCA gym. Again, a significant drive from the school, which wouldn't be necessary if we would be able to buy a building. And we always supported those kids who ended up choosing public schools, but it doesn't always feel like that support is universal between public and charter schools, and it really should be. Like my dad said, it shouldn't be a competition. It really needs to be the case where there's mutual support between all public schools to really ensure that kids' future is not in jeopardy. And one of the biggest reasons is it really is a big deal when it comes to giving students the freedom to choose a school that really fits for them, because when public and charter schools are pitted against each other, it makes both options seem like the worst option because they're both trying to harm each other. And that's not always intentional. It just kind of happens when there's a competition that's in place, and that's not how it should be. It feels like you have less choices because there are buildings that you drive by every single day and that are just empty. And those buildings are being upkept, and they're being, the lights are on. There's money being put into them, but there's no school. There's no student output from those schools. In the end, I chose AL. I went to school in an office building, so there were no facilities for all of the sports, the clubs that I wanted to be a part of, and we made it work. But it was a struggle, and it wouldn't have had to be that way. In the end, removing barriers from improving public schooling in our state will never not be a necessity and a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic job.
Yep.
Any questions? Say none. Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tricia Workman here today on behalf of the Missouri Charter Public School Association. We'd like to go on record in support. Really can't add much to the testimony we've heard. I do want to say that my understanding is the majority of these deed restrictions are 99 years. So even in situations where the district and the charter have worked together on sales, which have certainly happened, you still have these deed restrictions that are sitting there, and it's at the, as I understand it, it's at the decision of the district as to when they want to enforce them or not. So this would clean that up. Happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you for your testimony and clarifying. Questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning. Kate Casas here on behalf of KIPP St. Louis and the American Federation for Children. Want to go on record and support KIPP St. Louis. Serves roughly 2,500 kids in the city of St. Louis and is a public school and is always looking for the right place to educate students. As a resident of the city of St. Louis, I drive by these vacant buildings all of the time that the residents of the city of St. Louis are paying to upkeep and or that are causing their property values to deteriorate because there's a deteriorating building in the center of their neighborhood, and we believe they should be used for public schools.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else testify in support? Please come forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arne C. AC Diehl, State Public Advocate. I submitted my form in support of both of the bills on the Senate portal. I'm in favor of HCS HB2404 and HB2172. They're both basically the same legislation. On January 27th of this year, I testified in the House Emerging Issues Committee on both of these bills. We need to keep former school buildings for school-related education programs and related classes. This is smart legislation. As the chair stated, this is a no-brainer, and I concur with that statement. Let's get this bill onto the governor's desk. This is common sense. But my question that I need to ask each senator is, why are the large school districts of our state, predominantly Kansas City and the City of St. Louis School District, and their lobbyists, why are they opposing this legislation? It makes no common sense, no rhyme or reason to me why in the world they would want something that was built for education to go to something else rather than to be kept in the education field or education arena. These school districts deem these buildings as surplus, empty school buildings. It's noted, or I'd like to note for the public record, that there is a fiscal note of absolutely zero on the state budget or the state general fund or to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And as a matter of fact, this bill brings revenue into the school districts of both Kansas City and the City of St. Louis and other school districts throughout the state that may have older, aging buildings that they may either retire or take out of service or because of declining population decide to close for some reason. Let's do the right thing here. This is common sense legislation for once. Let's get it on the governor's desk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Becky Lohman, registered lobbyist for the Opportunity Trust. I won't repeat what other witnesses have said, but want to go on the record in support.
Thank you very much. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Okay, see none. In opposition, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Steve Carroll, registered lobbyist here on behalf of the St. Louis Public Schools. I want to go on record in opposition to the bill for various reasons, really. I'm no Perry Mason, but as an attorney, state law cannot interfere with contracts. Under Article 1, Section 13 of the Constitution, you can't impair on the obligation of contracts. I mean, you just can't. So we think it's unconstitutional to begin with. I mean, what this bill is basically doing is giving legal nexus to a third party to come in and void a contract between two parties that they enter into. And we just don't think that's good public policy. It'd end up in the courts if it were to pass, I'm sure. But more so, let me, if I can, Mr. Chairman, to give you a little history lesson, because none of you were here 19 years ago. I have had the pleasure of representing St. Louis Public Schools since December of 1997 when I was hired. In 1999, it was my law firm at the time that we drafted and helped do the DSEG settlement agreement that had been going on for years, as many of you may know. Now, the year before, because we were able to come to an agreement, February 4th, 1999, it was basically because of the year before, Senate Bill 781 was passed, which 781 allowed for charter schools for the first time in St. Louis and Kansas City. But also in that bill, they formed the Transitional School District, which was an overlay school district of the St. Louis Public Schools. Should they ever get in such bad shape, the state could come in and take that district over, which in 2007 they did. And so at that time, Governor Blunt appointed Rick Sullivan as the CEO of that district, and there was a 3-member SAB that controlled it. And they did 3 things they were obligated to do: was get the governance system under control, to get the budget under control because they were almost bankrupt, and to get the test scores up because they were unaccredited, and to bring them up to full accreditation. They went to work immediately, and in 2007, yes, they had a policy of a deed restriction on the buildings because they felt like at that time there were too many buildings and not enough students in the city. You got to remember, back in 1970, there were 114,000 students in the St. Louis Public Schools. Today, there's 17,000. So yes, so there were many, many buildings that were used back then, and there's just, the students aren't there now. But they put that in place, but in 2 years later, after they got the district stabilized, they removed that policy. So I mean, it's really a misnomer. I mean, right now, the St. Louis Public Schools, we have 14 buildings up for sale. Charter schools haven't made a bid on any of them. I mean, the charter schools really, they don't want these old buildings. Many of them are 100 years old. It would take so much money to bring them up to code to open them. I mean, the maintenance on them, they're too big. Most of these schools can house from 800 to 1,500 students. Most of the charter schools don't have that number of students. And not to mention, the buildings are empty in the areas where there aren't a lot of students. That's why they were closed to begin with. So, I mean, we just don't think this is necessary. The district has tried to work with charter schools in the past. I mean, we had an agreement with KIPP where they were in 2 of our buildings, but we couldn't come to agreement on the maintenance part of it, which I don't think they're going to be there after this school year. But we're just wanted to go on record, try to give you a little factual information about it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, just try to get more clarity on the situation. So, I mean, while we have had mass exodus occur in a lot of these districts, we do have buildings that we're paying for utilities and everything just to set vacant. I remember when I was a Cass County auditor, I found that we had the old Cass County jail that had been literally vacant for 25 years. Come to find out, we were paying to keep the temperature at 70-some degrees, power on, for a completely vacant building, like no purpose whatsoever. You know, I mean, what an egregious waste of taxpayer dollars. So we ended up selling it, and now somebody's utilizing it for their own good. But I guess when we're talking that we're supposed to be, I mean, a public school is a public school, I guess, why is there no, like, coordination if there is, say, these contractual agreements to work with the charters to make sure we're able to utilize existing educational buildings? I guess, is that not happening? Because it doesn't sound like that it is.
They're listed for sale. I mean, we haven't had, to my knowledge, any charter schools contact the district in regard to those 14 buildings that are listed currently. I mean, we have sold buildings, the areas where there's not enough students. I mean, we need housing in the city of St. Louis, and the school board has sold some of these buildings for senior housing, for social services. They just got through selling 2 buildings to St. Louis Development Corporation and somebody else. So it's not like they're not trying to get rid of some of the schools, but also some of them are mothballed because you had, I believe, this Confluence several years ago, a charter school that went under with 1,200 students, and we ended up opening up a building to take some of those students coming back. Not to mention the tornado that went through last year damaged 6 of our schools very badly, so we had to move students around as well. So we don't think this is an issue, but obviously some people do, and every year it seemed like it passes in the House and it dies in the Senate. But we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing my testimony.
Any questions? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else testify in opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Chris Ropey, registered lobbyist here on behalf of the Kansas City School District. Just want to cover a few things with the committee. This is not a problem, and you talk about cooperation, this is not a problem in the Kansas City School District, and it's something that will actually make it harder for us to plan and manage and figure out the best way to educate all students in the Kansas City School District. We have a nationally recognized process that we use. It's looked at from school districts across the country. It gets presented at national education conferences all the time, and is something that really does have best practices that are at hand. We've got great relationships with our charter schools in Kansas City. I know we've recently sold 2 buildings, one to Academy Lafayette, who you heard from earlier, and also Hogan Charter School. Just recently, want to make sure to mention that. You talk about community outreach. That is a part of our process, a big part of our process at working with the community to find out, in those neighborhoods, what is the best use for some of these buildings that are being talked about. A couple examples of what we have done in some of those situations where we've stopped what was intending to have happened with those buildings, and based on that community outreach, we turned one building into senior housing, we turned one into a community park, and we're looking at a building now and turning it into affordable housing for teachers, and using that. Just this past April, with 85% of support from the community, they passed the first general obligation bond in 60 years. And that was done in partnership with the charters. 9 charter schools chose to participate. I think the numbers are they will receive about $50 million from that bond to put towards their buildings that they operate. We opened that up to every charter school in the Kansas City School District. 9 of them wanted to participate. This is going to be a 20-year process to figure out what we're going to do with those resources the community entrusted us with. I think $474 million total. We have some very old buildings. They will have to be rehabbed, refurbished. Some will be closed. We're going to build a new elementary school. We've got to have a place to house those students while those things are taking place. And so our ability to manage the entire district, we need some of those buildings that currently might be vacant, but we need those to be able to do this long-term planning that's best kept in the hands of the local school district. Our district was at, I think, 14,700 students 2 years ago. We are now the district of choice, if you want to look at that way. The majority of students are in the Kansas City Public School District as opposed to your traditional public charter schools. That's projected to be about 17,000 students. That's a huge influx of students over the next 2 years. The 2-year restriction in the bill causes a lot of problems. You're talking about, you might have some very good actors in some existing charter schools, but this is a one-size-fits-all. You could have an out-of-state entity come in and be able to utilize this law to be able to do some things that might not be in the best interest of the long-term planning of the district. This just isn't a problem in our community. I can't speak for any other districts or where this may have an impact, but for us in Kansas City, we just don't feel that it's necessary, and we like the current process that we use. I know Academy Lafayette has a request in now that is going through that process that I've talked about, which the locally elected school board will make a decision on, I believe, at its April board meeting, and so that will be resolved at that point and what is going to happen with that. So there is a good local process in place with the locally elected school board that we'd like to continue to maintain. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anyone for informational purposes only? Okay, seeing none. Closing remarks, briefly.
Yeah, just to remind everyone that one is the 2-year item that will be that's being taken out in the substitute, and I'm really glad that the opposition, because in the sense that this bill, all it is, it's permissive. It is not restrictive in any way. So if already now all this is happening, then there is no reason to have opposition to the legislation, because all it does is just takes out some obsolete language and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in the repurposing school buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 2404 and 2172. And we'll now hear House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2335. Representative, begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Ann Kelly, District 127, Barton, Dade, Jasper, and Cedar counties. House Bill 2335 requires that newly hired employees receive the required trainings annually for the first 3 years of employment. All other employees will be provided training and education on these topics as determined by the school district based on the specific needs of the district and each employee. All employees are required to be trained for a minimum of 3 years for any newly developed trainings required by state law beginning 26-27 school year. In addition, all the federal trainings remain in place. And with that, I close.
All right.
No, you're fine.
Questions? Proceed.
I just want to say thank you for bringing this. I always say that we sometimes love our schools to death almost, so we keep doing all these trainings, which are good things, but when you do it year after year after year, you look at the staggering amount of hours that could be used to help students in other ways too, and how many times do you have to be trained? And I think that's the gist that you're trying to get. Is that correct?
I completely agree. Yeah, every year, every teacher, every required certified staff have to do X amount of trainings, and it takes hours and hours and hours, if not days, where they should be working in their classrooms getting prepared for their school.
Thank you for bringing this.
Proceed.
Good morning, Representative.
Good morning.
I share the same sentiment as you. I understand well the reality of navigating those trainings. And again, a lot of them come from a really good place. I think, for example, I think at the dyslexia training, it's really important that teachers have that understanding. But when you have a copy and paste training year after year, you get there and essentially you can kind of blank out. I've been here, I've done this. But again, I think a lot of the trainings come from a place of making sure that teachers have the resources to respond to different things. I appreciate a few of the things that you've included, making sure that all teachers are trained in suicide prevention. That's an incredibly important piece, as well as the active shooter piece. Unfortunately, that's our reality. So I appreciate the provisions that you've added there. And then there's a couple that I'd like to talk to you on, some other trainings that I do think are really important. So again, just would like to continue to work on this and make sure that we have, again, some clarity in here, some simplification, but at the same time respecting some of the work that has been done by the General Assembly with some of these training requirements.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any further questions? Seeing none. Anyone to testify in support, please come forward.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Arnie C., AC Diehl, State Public Advocate. I submitted my testimony on the Senate portal a few days ago, I believe on Monday. Hopefully you've received it. This is common sense legislation. HB2335 makes a lot of sense. It's going to save time and effort. I think being repetitive after 3 years, it's going to be ingrained into an educator's mind. Things like intruder training, stop the bleed, school bullying, disorders, all kinds of issues, suicide prevention. That's ongoing training. The teachers are around and get updates all of the time. On February 11th of this year, I testified in the House Elementary and Secondary Education on behalf of this bill. The training just gets repetitive. They're key components. They're no-brainers. These are smart educators with master's degrees and master's plus 36. I think that they can get the concept and the understanding of what is required of them as a professional educator within 3 years of time. Therefore, I highly support HB 2375. This is smart legislation, and it's good for the educational field. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else testifying support, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Harris on behalf of the Missouri State Teachers Association. Speaking in favor of House Bill 2335. At its very basic level, this bill reflects something that teachers are asking for more and more, which is time. Time to plan, time to teach, and time to focus on students instead of checking boxes. MSTA supports high-quality professional development, but our members believe strongly in training that actually helps educators do their jobs well. They struggle with repetitive, one-size-fits-all mandates that don't always make sense for experienced educators in local circumstances, and that's why we support this bill. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We also support House Bill 2335. Really appreciate the sponsor bringing this bill forward again. It represents maybe something unusual that we have a lot of year by year. The legislature, with great intent, will focus on an issue and then put a mandate for some kind of training. It's unusual and beneficial for the legislature to stop and reflect on the totality of what's been put in front of the school districts, the principals, and the teachers in terms of the the training mandates placed on our staff, which is usually something we have to make time for right as we're getting ready for the school year to start. And so we think that this will give the school boards an opportunity to really tune that, and principals to really tune that to the needs of the school, and use that time efficiently and make sure the training isn't something you're just going to be checking the box. You're just going to be saying, oh, I've seen that a gazillion times, but make sure that if it's in front of you for this school year, it's something the school feels is important for you to relearn and focus on. We think that'll actually improve the professional development for our schools and for our staff statewide. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else testify in support? Okay, seeing none. Anyone in opposition? Please remember to fill out a witness form if you don't have one.
Chairman Bratton and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Christy Polk. I'm the Executive Director of the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri and Kansas. I'm also the mother of 2 sons with epilepsy, and I'm a resident of St. Louis. I have with me today Adam Capps. He's the father of Will Capps, for whom Will's Law was named. And I'm here to express concern with HB 2335, school employee training, specifically the removal of the biennial seizure disorder and epilepsy training requirement under Will's Law. I apologize for not voicing my concerns earlier, but we are a very small organization and we just became aware of this bill late last week. While we appreciate the training for new employees, this bill does not ensure ongoing, consistent training for all school staff. Seizures are unpredictable and can quickly become life-threatening, and staff must be able to respond appropriately and quickly. In Missouri, 7,277 students with seizure disorders were reported for the school year for 2023-2024. These students rely on trained adults every day. This training is brief, it's accessible online, and it's provided at no cost to the school districts. We support teachers. We know their time is very valuable, but the students' safety are of the utmost importance, and we respectfully urge you to amend the bill and maintain the current training requirements to ensure student safety and consistent preparedness across schools. And just, to emphasize, Will's Law was just passed in 2022 with broad support. So I'm proud to have Will Capps' father here today, and I'll let him also speak.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. The gentleman that stepped out, he mentioned we love our schools to death. Well, I love my child to death. And make no mistake about it, this is a matter of safety. We're trusting our educators to be able to respond to these extreme situations. I can't speak to you as an educator, but I can speak to you through my experience. I've been in the military for 15 years, and we have annual training. And we have annual training because we need to be able to respond to these situations effectively in the scenario. Whether that's self-aid buddy care or our information assurance training, these are annual requirements to ensure that we're able to respond. And training a teacher, the first 3 years they're there, they get the annual requirement, they have that exposure, but the continued exposure is what makes them effective in these scenarios. So to give you a scenario, you have a child that's playing football, they're doing summer camp, they're getting hot, they're getting exhausted, they're dehydrated, then they have a seizure on the football field. Is that football coach that's tenured and hasn't had that training going to be able to respond in that situation, or is that child going to die? That's a real consideration that needs to be made here. This is a 15, 20-minute training that gives that educator the exposure to be able to respond. They have that training, that exposure to be able to call on that experience. And that's what's important here. This is a matter of life or death. And thank you for hearing.
Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that very much. Question? Proceed.
Thanks for being here today, and really, I guess just a comment. One of the things I mentioned, so I was a teacher for 13 years, but I was also a coach. And one of the things I was thinking about as I was looking through this is there are certain trainings that you have to do to keep your skills up to date, if you will, those refresher courses. So I think about CPR, for example, and things change and they evolve. And having that regular training always kept me ready to go, like if needed, God forbid. It's the same thing I think about in these medical complex situations, having that real, again, that regular training to keep your skills fresh, a refresher course, if you will, I think is really important. So I do think this merits us taking some time to look at these, and I think this would be an important exemption to make sure that teachers continue to receive this training, just as we do with CPR for coaches and others. I think that's definitely important as we consider these things. I appreciate you guys bringing this forward. I know there's a lot of stuff that moves very quickly, and this is probably one of them that, again, it seems like, this bill comes from a good place. We have a lot of other types of trainings that I think once you're trained in it, you're ready to go. You see that, you practice it daily in your classroom. But again, when it comes to medical complex situations, I would like to see us certainly carve out Will's Law. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it. Please remember to fill out a witness form too. Thank you. Anyone else testifying in opposition? Okay, see none. Informational purposes only. Okay, see none. Representative, closing remarks. Okay. All right. So that concludes the hearing on 2335, and I say that we're adjourned.